Can you guys hear me? Hi, Carrie. Can you guys hear me? I just got a message on my screen, something about audio not working or... Hi, Peggy. Can somebody let me know if you can hear me? Hello. Hi, Melinda. Hello, hello. Oh, Peggy, I miss you so. Hi, Susie. Can you guys let me know if you can hear and see me, just because it's saying my connection's no good, and I got a notice saying that audio wasn't working. I'm thinking you can hear me. Anyway, I'm just gonna go for it. Hello, hello. I haven't been able to watch any of the tutorials prior to mine because I've been getting ready. I actually just swallowed a can of tuna, like almost in one gulp, just to get something in me. But everything's all set up and I'm ready to go. Seems slow. Okay. Hopefully it's just slow for you, Melinda, and everybody else is okay. Susie, thank you, says she can see and hear. Perfect. Yay. I have my list here. We've got, I've got an hour and a half. Hopefully I don't go over my time, but I noticed that Melinda put a 30-minute gap between each demo. So just in case I go over, there is some time, but I'm going to really try not to. So today, first of all, my name's Susan Trianos, and I've been decorating cakes and cookies and all things fun for, I think, 38 years, something like that, going on 40 anyway. I own a company called Learn to Cake. Learn to Cake is an online school, supply shop. I sell just kind of the things that I love. It's not a huge supply shop. Yeah, cookie cutters, online classes, all that kind of fun stuff. And it's learntocake.com. Today we are going to be working on this. I just finished it last night, a little sample. It is a 3D little fairy house. So lots of different techniques, using molds and no molds, getting textures with no molds and some tools, and I'll show you how to do that. But it's an ambitious project for an hour and a half. So I'm going to work quickly, but in order to facilitate the time and get this done, I have things I got really prepared last night, and I prepared things in various stages so that you don't have to watch me do every single rock on the floor. Like, I'll do a few, demo how to do it, and then I'll bring out a piece that's already kind of complete and just needs airbrushing or something like that. So done it all in stages. And today I'm working with royal icing and fondant, and both are from my Susan Trianos collection. So I don't know who has tried my Fluff and Stuff meringue powder, but it's titanium dioxide free, nut free, tree nut free, peanut free, gluten free, it's kosher, all the good stuff. It has vanilla in it, has corn syrup in it. You don't have to add those things, but you can add more if you like, or other flavors. And today I'm working with my newest launch, and that is Fondalicious Fondant. It is tree nut free, peanut free, gluten free, trans fat free. So trans fat free in Canada, which means it even has less trans fats than the US, because what is considered trans fat free in the US is not trans fat free here in Canada. Smells great, tastes great. You can roll it super thin. It doesn't get dry and crusty. And I'll show you an example of something that I created last night, and I'm going to manipulate it even more. And it's been sitting out and drying out all night. Comes in a 2-pound pail, 5-pound pail, and a 20-pound pail. And in the US is available at icingimages.com. And in Canada, I'm just finishing up some labeling, but really soon it'll be available at learntocake.com. Okay. All the boring part is done. I'm going to move my camera and we're going to get started. Move my list of things to do over. And it's going to be hard for me to answer questions while I'm working. So once the live is done, I will go through and kind of answer any questions, or if anyone that's watching has the answer to one of the questions that's asked, feel free to jump in and answer that question for me. Okay, now I'm going to move my camera. So hopefully you don't get nauseous. Give me 1 second. And let's turn the camera around. There we go. I might move the camera in different directions throughout this demo because this is a 3D piece and not just flat, for you to be able to see. Let me just fix my camera. There we go. Okay. Oh, I didn't even have to do that. All right, talking to myself. All right. So if you know me, you know I don't like using a ton of tools. I like to keep things simple. And as I go with whatever color I'm using, a fondant, I'm going to tell you how I created that color and so forth. So let's get started. So there is our little fairy house. Very cute. I think it's cute. And first thing on my list, let's see, I introduced myself, talked about the meringue powder and the fondant, and I'm going to talk about how I baked these pieces because I have some curved pieces, right? So for this house, little fairy house, I created some cutters. These cutters are available on my website as a set. If you go on my website, learntocake.com, and search fairy house, these will come up, and it's sold as a complete set. This cutter creates this arched cookie, hollowed out tree. This is the base or the floor. This is the back wall, and I'm going to show you how to trim that. I kept it as a full circle for people to trim because when you bake arched cookies like this, sometimes the cookie dough stretches and you get a longer piece or a shorter piece, and I'll show you how to cut the cookie to fit whatever your arch turns out to be. We've got a window, and this also is a tabletop for our little table that goes in our house, and it also acts as the stairs. Okay, so it serves two purposes. So when I baked this arch cookie, I first started with some cookie dough that I didn't alter in any way, and I put it directly on a round 4-inch cake pan. So what I do is I get some tin foil and I scrunch it up around the sides of my pan, like I lay it down on the tin foil, and then I push the tin foil into the sides so that my pan doesn't roll around while it goes on my cookie tray and in the oven. Okay. Then what I do is I take a piece of tin foil, a strip of tin foil, a little wider than the cookie dough, and I'm placing it on my pan like so, wrapping it around nice and tight and kind of pinching it closed on the back side, kind of folding it into itself, and that can go sort of at the base on the sides. And then that sits like this in my oven. So what I did at first to get this piece, oops, and you can see it broke. Very fragile, and I was really struggling to figure out a way for this to bake in a curve that didn't stretch too much, because as it bakes, you can see all these cracks. As it bakes, the dough warms up and stretches and slides down the pan. So I watched a Julie Usher video, and she recommends adding flour to your recipe and adjusting it and rolling your dough thinner. Now, that did work for me somewhat, but I was still getting some stretching. And I do recommend you watch her video on YouTube. But what really worked for me is I took some of my dough, I did add more flour to it, and then what I did was I put it in the oven and I baked my piece flat in the oven for 5 minutes. What that did is it started to form a skin or crust up the dough on the bottom and the top ever so slightly. And then I took a really long spatula and once it baked for 5 minutes, I slid my spatula underneath my cookie dough and I picked it up, and then I gently placed it on my pan and let it fall around the sides of my pan. And then when I baked it, I ended up getting this perfect cookie with no cracks, and it didn't stretch or distort in any way because I baked the cookie just enough for it to get an outer crust or skin on the dough and placed it on the pan, and then it didn't stretch anymore because that crust that had formed was strong enough to keep it from continuing to spread and stretch. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I can cross that off. That's how I cut my pieces. For my stairs, I have, let's see here. Here is the base. And for my stairs, I took my 4-inch cutter that is for the back of my house, which is also the same shape as this. So I cut out a round circle like so, and then with the bigger round cutter, cut a piece out so that would fit perfectly as a step. And then this one, I used my small cutter, cut out a round, and then cut out another piece because this one is the same size as this one, and then that fits perfectly. Okay? Hopefully, thanks Peggy. I think it's a good tip. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, so I can move on from there. And let's get this broken cookie out of here. Maybe I'll keep it off to the side and nibble on it. Okay, let me move some of the stuff out of the way. And we can get started. Oops, I dropped a cutter. I'll find that after. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, oh, there's the cutter. Ugh. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is create the board. And if you see, the board has some really great texture. It's not smooth. So I'm going to cover just a cake board. This is an 8-inch round. And how cute would this be on the top of an 8-inch round cake? And rather than this being my board, it would be the top of my cake. Super cute. And edible. Tasty. Okay, so I'm going to take some green fondant, and this fondant was colored with, or all my colors were colored with Artisan Accents, and this I used Artisan Accents green and a bit of yellow, or sorry, green, probably 4 parts green to 1 part orange to 1 part brown to 1 part black to get this very sort of natural sort of green. So I'm going to take a chunk. I'm going to knead it. This fondant is quite soft out of the bucket, but when you knead it, it tightens up. And flavor-wise and scent, the scent kind of reminds me of Oreo cookie filling. Pretty yummy. So I'm going to put a little bit of powdered sugar down. I like to use powdered sugar, but you can use cornstarch. I just prefer powdered sugar. And I'm going to take my rolling pin. Don't need that just yet. Okay, take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll this out a little bit bigger than my board. You can see I didn't mix my color in perfectly well. There's a little streak there, but that's okay. And what I love is being able to roll my fondant out super thin. I don't like to waste, and I like it so thin that people will actually eat it. Not that they're going to eat the board, but give it a couple more passes here, and then I will show you how I get the texture. Okay, good enough. Very thin. It's probably just under 1/8 of an inch thick, closer to 1/16 of an inch, and that is how thick I roll my fondant to cover cakes too, 1/16 of an inch. And if you go to the Icing Images YouTube page, I did a video where I cover a cake and cover it with 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so I've got my cake board here, and to get this sticky, just take a spray bottle. Normally I have a little mister bottle that puts a light mist, but I can't find it, so I'm using this big guy. Just going to mist a bit of water on there. And I'm going to wipe off some of the excess because I just want this damp. Pick up my fondant, put it over the top. Now you can see the lines in the cardboard a little bit. And if I were to roll my fondant in the same direction as those lines, it accentuates them. If I turn the lines, or sorry, not in the same direction, but with parallel to the lines with my rolling pin. And then if I turn it this way, so the lines of the cardboard are going up and down, and then roll, it masks those lines a lot better. To trim this, I just take a knife and I pick it up and I go from the bottom of the knife and I pull down all the way around the board. Don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to do that quick. Stuck my fingers in it, but that's not going to matter once I texture this. Okay, there we go. So to texture this now, this is a good technique if you want to make something look like a fuzzy teddy bear or furry or like snow. I use the same texture technique for all of those things. My fondant back in the bag. Now, I'm putting my fondant back in the bag right away, but with this fondant you kind of don't have to because it doesn't get crusty. It will firm up, but you can, I've taken fondant that's been out hours and slowly been able to knead it back into what it should be. Okay. So I'm going to take this nail cleaning brush and I press down, straight down, quite hard, moving it in different directions, and it covers a lot of space, a lot of area quickly. So you can see I'm already half done texturing this board, super quick. I won't bore you with the rest, but it gives nice texture. And then here we have one done from yesterday. So let me toss this on my counter like a Frisbee. So, I don't know if you can see, but on this board, I've airbrushed the edges of this a little darker just for some more interest. Airbrush does wonders when you're working with things to add depth and interest. And when I airbrush, I put things on a paper towel. I'm going to be airbrushing with brown today and also with green. And to make the green airbrush color, I used my Artisan Accents gels and used dilution solution, and I mixed the color the same way I mixed this with green, little orange, little brown, little black. And then some dilution solution to thin it out. I'm going to use this airbrush for the green, I think. I use portable airbrushes, which I sell on the site too. I love them. So this is just a little dollar store bottle that I bought. I put my colors in, my dilution solution. The dilution solution is 3 or 4 to 1, depending on how much you want to dilute it. Then you just shake it up in the bottle and you're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to turn my airbrush on. Whenever I airbrush something, I always spray on my paper towel first, because oftentimes there's a little bit of color left over from the last time and you want to shoot that out first. No matter how well you clean it, oftentimes the last color will come out first. So I'm going to turn it on and I'm just going to focus on the very edge. I don't want to spray the entire board because then that sort of defeats the purpose and you're not going to get that variation or depth in color. There we go. Our board is done. So I can set this aside. And okay, just making sure there's nothing weird happening, like somebody telling me they can't hear me or something. All right, so what's next on my list? Okay, we're going to cover and texture this dome or our hollowed out tree trunk for our fairy house. So to do this, here is my cookie that I baked perfectly. And I'm going to get some brown fondant now. And the brown, I used Artisan Accents brown, and I find Artisan Accents brown to be a very cool brown, so I usually add some red to it if I want like a warm color. If I don't, then I just leave it. Okay, so let's knead this, condition it. Sorry, my camera is jiggling because it's on a spring. And I'm going to roll this out nice and thin again, because there we go. Okay. Because I like people to want to eat the cookies and the cake, so I roll out thin. I'm going to roll this out long enough to cover my hollowed out log, or my, not dome, arch. Let's call it an arch. Okay, let's see. Now, I'm not going to use a mold to texture this, to get this bark. So what I'm going to do is, I've got some tin foil. I'm going to crumple it up. And I'm just going to, I kind of crumple it into a pretty tight ball because I want to be aggressive. And if it's not tight, then I get just a very light texture, but I want something very textured. So the ball should be rolled up tight and be kind of hard. And I move the ball around in different directions so that I don't get the same pattern. We don't want this to be very organic. Okay. And half the time, like I love using molds and things like that, but I have so much stuff and my stuff isn't very organized. I do demos and I put all my tools in a bin, and when I get home I'm tired and I don't want to put my stuff away, so I have assorted bins with assorted tools all over my house. Okay, so we have a nice tree bark texture, and I'm going to take my cutter. Bear with me, sorry, I put it away. So this is the cutter that I used to cut out my cookie dough. So I'm going to cut this out. Give it a little wiggle. Nice clean cut. There we go. Okay, now to attach this to my cookie, let me just see something here. Perfect. Okay, to attach this to my cookie, I take some piping gel, or you can flip this over and wet it with a spray bottle. I like to use piping gel though. And I'm going to just paint on some piping gel onto the bare cookie. Let me check the time. 3:27. I have an hour left. You don't have to go crazy thick with this. You can even use jam, apricot glaze, honey, anything sticky. Or like I said, just water on the back of your fondant. Okay. Let's pick this up. And I'm going to, my hands are sticky now. Wipe them off. I'm going to pick up my fondant. I'm going to place it at the base where it meets the table and over the edge. And if you need to stretch it a little bit to get it to the bottom of the other side, go ahead and do that. And there we go. We have, I'm going to just smooth out the edges. Smooth out the edges on both sides. There we go. And we have a covered dome for our fairy house. Then I like to take a Dresden tool. I'm going to pick this up closer. And I like to add pressing and pulling in random places, almost like little cracks in the bark. And that's going to add some dimension and texture too, because I'm going to airbrush this, and I will airbrush in some of those grooves to make them darker too. Okay, there we go. Super easy, right? So I'm going to put this one aside because I have the one that I did yesterday. So I'm going to airbrush now. I'm going to airbrush with some brown. So I'm going to get out my paper towel. Here we go. And I'm going to get my other airbrush ready. I like having multiple airbrushes, and these portable ones are very inexpensive, so I can do that. That way I don't have to wash it out between colors. Okay, so the brown, same thing. I used the same colors to mix the fondant. I used brown and a little bit of red. So let's see. Spraying out on my paper towel first. I must have used brown last. Okay, so for this, I like to darken all the edges. So I'm going to spray a little darker on the edge. There we go. And I'm going to spray the edges around the top. I'm going to try and avoid getting it on the cookie though. So there we go. Just along the edges. Let's do that on the other side. And Lynn Barone, I saw you make a comment earlier and I meant to say hello, so I'm saying hello now. Hello, Lynn Barone. Okay, so there are those little creases or cracks that I created in the fondant, so I'm going to spray and pull out and flick outwards. And that's going to add some dimension in those little crevices. And do that on the other side, just in those little cracks. And then on the bark itself, anywhere where I see like a deep indentation from the foil, I will give a light spray in that area as well. Very random though. We don't want this to look like it's got polka dots on it. Okay, there we go. The arch for our little house is done, and I think it looks so cute. Hello back. Yes, hi Lynn. Okay, so that is done. Let's see what else, what is next on my list. Decorate the back wall. Okay, so the back wall of our, I'm missing a piece. Hold on a second here. Where? Oh, there it is. So we are going to create this now. And this fits perfectly in our arch. Okay, that's because this was done on a 4-inch pan, 3-inch high. And this is a 4-inch cookie cutter. Let's see if I can get a little closer. Okay, so for me to make this fit, I put it in place, make sure my window is straight, and I get a knife, or you can use an edible marker, whatever you want, and I put a little notch here in the cookie, and put a little notch on the other side, so that I know where to cut. And don't be afraid, cookies are easy to cut. So I take a straight edge or a ruler, and I line up my straight edge with those little notches, and I just lightly start scratching the cookie over and over and over again. I'm not trying to push through, because if you push through, you're going to break the cookie and crack it. So we are creating back and forth, just lightly, and it'll go deeper and deeper. And when we're about a quarter way through, I can hold the cookie on either side of that line and gently break it, and it will break right in the right spot. Then I take, you can leave it like that, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I'm a little anal. I take my lemon zester and I just zest that nice and flat and smooth, and that is how you adjust. So you can see why I chose not to make this round cutter this shape, because like I said, when we bake these, it could stretch a little bit on the pan or not stretch at all, and this won't fit perfectly. So I like to make it fit. So there we go. Okay. Get rid of my ruler, and let's work on decorating the back piece. So with the back piece, I'm going to use, Roberta. Yeah, I love the zester too. So now I'm going to use some tan fondant, and for this I use brown and a little bit of orange. And I'm also going to need some brown, because we're going to do this, the lines in the window. That's done with fondant. gonna need a little bit of that. Okay, a little bit of this. Don't need too much. Okay. And what else? What else? I'm gonna need that, and I'm going to need my round cutter. Okay, let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is supposed to represent like a wood slice, so I do have a mold to create that texture, which we're gonna get here. And I'm gonna need my pan fondant. And because this fondant doesn't have a lot of titanium dioxide in it, you can roll or color your fondant with purple, you can color it with pink, and it really doesn't fade. I mean, purple typically with a lot of fondants, the titanium dioxide reacts with it, and you immediately get, you don't get purple, you get this funky like grayish blue or just straight gray. I rolled out a fondant cake 2 weeks ago in purple, and it is still very purple. If we have time at the end, I will pull it out of the fridge and show you. Okay, oops. This fondant is rolled out probably a 1/16 of an inch thick. Again, I want it super thin. See how thin that is? Because a little bit of chew with a crunchy cookie is a yummy thing. A lot of chewy is not so good. So, okay. So I'm going to take my fondant and I'm going to put it in this mold, and I'm going to get some powdered sugar on my fingers so that it doesn't stick to my fingers and pull out of the mold. I'm just going to, you can use fondant too, but I like using my fingers. Just pressing that indentation onto the fondant, peeling it off, and there we have it. Okay, so to get this to fit perfectly, I like to first cut out my circle. Okay, get rid of the excess. And once the circle is cut, I then place this on top and line it up. And same thing I did when I cut the cookie, I'm going to mark the fondant with a knife, and then that's where I know where to cut. Okay? There we go. Now, for the window, we're going to place the cookie on top of this piece, and with the knife, I'm going to mark sort of that top arch, mark the sides of the window, mark the bottom of the window, and then I know where to line up my window cutter. Well, there you go, Roberta. Now you can make a little fairy house, giving a little wiggle so I get a nice clean cut, pulling that out, and there we go. Now this is sort of floppy, and if I pick it up and I try and line it up on top of my cookie, I might not line it up perfectly. So I have a little trick for how I do that. And that is, I take out that paper towel that I use for airbrushing, and I take my fondant and I flip it on its back side. So all the texture's on the front. And I line this up and make sure it lines up nice with my cookie, and it does. So I take my spray bottle. Again, a little misting bottle would work much better than this, but I just give a little spray with water to make this tacky. That's a lot of water. Misting bottles work so much better. And then I line my cookie up on top of the fondant. And then that way, my camera's in my face, I can't see. Then that way, you don't have to shimmy with it and lay it perfectly and readjust. There we go. Okay? There we go. You need to stretch it in any areas you can, but there you have it. Okay. So, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the window panes, I guess. So for that, I'm going to take a little bit of my brown fondant and going to knead that. Sorry, dropping things. I'm going to knead that. And I'm going to roll this out really thin. So I start with my fingers to roll it out. But rolling with your fingers doesn't give you a perfectly smooth rope or string of fondant. So once I get it to a certain thickness, I take my fondant smoother and I roll using the fondant smoother. And that ensures that I get an even rope of fondant, and I can go really thin too. So, almost there. Okay, I'm going to show you how I get these on in an easy way as well. I'm all about making things easy, not cutting corners, but being efficient and getting good results. So I know my window cutter is about that thick, that wide. So I'm going to go a little wider. And I'm going to cut 2 pieces about the same length. There we go. And put those aside. And I know I am about that tall. So I'm a little lower than the cutter and a little higher than the cutter. We want to cut these a little longer and wider. And there we go. Okay. Get rid of these little pieces. So I'm going to line up my longer pieces straight, like so. And then I'm going to take my shorter pieces and cross them over, lay them straight, like so. I'm going to hold this over and make sure that I have everything kind of centered, and I do. Once I have that and make the pound sign, I'm going to gently press where these 2 pieces intersect on either side. There we go. So they're stuck together now. Now I'm going to put my cutter and I'm going to center it, gently press. Now I have little notches where this is going to line up with the cutter, and I'm going to cut slightly outside of that little notch. Okay? Slightly outside of the little notch. Oop. Same thing down here, just below where the cutter made the little notch. Just above where the cutter made the little notch. Okay, about 1/8 of an inch over from that little notch. Then I get my piping gel. Get some on the brush, and I'm going to put a little dab of piping gel right on the end of each of those little ropes, on the outside of where those little notches are. I'm not worried about it getting on my table because I can clean that up after. Put the piping gel off my fingers. And now I can get my cookie, line up my cookie with those little notches from the cutter, like so. Give it a little press, and now that is stuck down. And I usually like to leave this aside for about an hour or so, just for the fondant to firm up a little bit. You can do that with royal icing, but the royal icing you stand the risk, you run the risk of breaking the strings. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and now we're going to do our shutters. Actually, we'll do our shutters. Okay, so for our shutters, the shutters don't go on the window like this. The window would be like that, so the shutters would open up this way, right? Like that. And if they were closed, they would close like that. Okay. Oh, Roberta, you're just so complimentary today. Thank you. So I'm going to take some of that tan and a little bit of powdered sugar on my table. And I'm going to roll out the tan really, really thin. You can use the brown fondant for this too, but I airbrushed it because airbrushing it brown gave me a little bit of gloss. And again, super, super thin. Super thin. Okay. Now I'm going to take a different mold or embosser. I guess it's a mold, I don't know. And I'm going to lay this on and do the same thing. Ooh, my fingers are sticky. Okay, powdered sugar fixes all. Just pressing that in, lifting it up. There we go. Centering I like to find a knot in the wood. Centering my cutter, giving a little wiggle. Cutting that in half. And I'm going to attach this to the cookie using a little bit of water, just like I did for this cookie. So I'm going to take these, put them imprinted side down, like so. Get my spray bottle, and I do this on the paper towel so that I don't wet my table, right? And the water absorbs into the paper towel versus being on the table and then our fondant sticks to the table because the table's wet. Okay, so let's take our cookies and let's line that up. Boom. Let's line this one up. Boom. There we go. Okay. Now that that's done, I'm going to take my brown airbrush, because I've got the paper towel here, and I'm going to spray these brown. And the wet from the airbrush kind of makes the fondant glossy when it sets and dries. So again, texture, sheen, different sheens, it's all going to add interest to your cookies or your cakes. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to dust this, and to dust, when I'm dusting brown, I like to, where did I put it? Where did I put it? Oh, here they are. I like to take cocoa powder. So cocoa powder, I have a mix of regular cocoa powder here and black cocoa powder because I wanted it a little darker. I'm going to dust around the edge a little bit. Tastes good too. And then with just a little bit, I'm going to just kind of smush it in just to give it a little interest, and some of that cocoa powder will go into the grooves of the rings on the cookie. There we go. Easy peasy. All right, next thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to attach my my shutters, and I'm going to create like a little bit of greenery and flowers on my, oops, busted a flower. Oh well, this one's going to get two. Okay, so I'm going to take some green royal icing, and the consistency of this is like a really soft peak, and I'm going to put a little bit of royal on the back of my shutter, place that on. Oops, stuck to my finger because it's still wet. A little bit of royal icing, stick that down. There we go. Could have put those on last because I'm going to now put some green just on the windowsill here. And I have some cookies here that I crushed up and colored green. And just going to sprinkle those on. There we go. And now we're going to stick these flowers on. I'm going to use a little dot of, actually I like to put the leaves on first. So you can use piping gel for this too. That way if any oozes out the sides, it's clear. Oop. Tiny little suckers. Okay. Sticking that on. A little bit of royal here. Oh, I already had royal on the flower. There we go. And a little dot of icing here, a little dot of icing there. And add these little flowers that I just used a tiny little mold for. Okay, so there we go. We have a complete back wall for our house. Really simple, right? Super simple. There we go. So I'm going to set this one aside. We're going to work with this one because the shutters are dry. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside and let's see what is next on the list. Okay, where'd my pen go? I'll be okay. All right, attach the back wall to the dome and set aside. Okay, I'm going to take a little piece of parchment paper. Bear with me, I forgot to bring my parchment paper out. Okay, I have a big sheet of parchment paper here. I'm just gonna tear a little piece off. Nothing fancy. And I'm going to attach my back wall to the arch. So I'm just gonna add some green. And I'm using green because if green oozes out anywhere, I can put some of that cookie moss that I created on the wet icing. And let's lay this down. And it'll just look like moss. So I'm going to now fit this over. And if it squirts out the back, that's okay. And we're gonna let that set. And I'll show you why that's okay. Bring my camera up for a second and show you the back of this one. See how I put the moss all at the back? Kind of looks cool and looks neat and finished. So while that's setting, I'm just going to push it aside. All right, that was simple. Halfway through the list, and ooh, I got 35 more minutes. Stone floor and steps. Okay, so for this I cut 2 floors and I'm gonna glue them together with some royal icing. And the reason why I did 2 floors is so that it sits up higher. So there we go, we're sandwiching that. Okay. Actually, what time do it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock your time. Yeah, I've got 35 more minutes. Okay. So there we go. To do these rocks, and I'm going to glue this together too. There we go. Okay. To do these rocks, I did them on the steps. And I have 2 steps for the first step and then 1 for this one so that it goes down. So I'm going to glue these together too. And let me show you how I did the rocks. Like that. Okay. So I'm not going to do the whole base because it's just repetitive. So I'm going to do some rocks on the top here. And when I add the rocks, I'm going to, again, take some piping gel. Just brush that on. I'm just going to do a section here. And I have some fondant that I added some black fondant to, some tan and some white. And I just rip off a chunk, roll it in a ball. I can make all different shapes. It can be oblong, can be round. And I just put them near each other, but not right up against each other. They're all about the same thickness at this point. Kind of squashing them down a little bit. All different sizes. Let's do a little itty bitty one here. There. Bigger one. Okay. Let's say I have this completely covered. There we go. Let's say I have this completely covered. I first take my nail brush again and I pounce on the tops of the rocks, not as hard as I did for the grass, just gently. And then I take my rolling pin and I roll flat. If you roll too flat, you can always come back in with your Dresden tool and you can deepen those a little bit if you want. I put the fondant rocks a little close together so they kind of squish together a little bit more. Okay, so that's how that's done, and I do the steps in the same way. So I'm going to put that aside. And I mentioned earlier that I did this last night, and the fondant is still, it's firm, but it's not crusty and crunchy. That's the beautiful thing about this fondant. I can still go in today. Oops, my glue isn't dry yet, gluing the cookies together, and indent that even more without it getting all crunchy and crumbly. Okay? So it stays pretty pliable even though it's firmed up, which is super cool. Thank you. I love the stonework too. Okay, I'm going to now airbrush it a little bit. And I'm going to airbrush it with some brown. So I'm going to just lightly spray just the edge all the way around. Like so. And if you want, you can kind of go in between the stones like this. I'm barely pressing down on the doohickey on my airbrush, just here and there, just in the crevices, okay? But that's not necessary, just kind of focus on the edge. All right, now I have my green, And if I want, I can go in some of these little nooks and crannies here and there and add some moss. So I'm taking that crushed up cookie that I added food coloring to. Let's do this over the bowl so I don't make a mess. You can use a brush to kind of brush the excess away. And then you have a little bit of moss. For the sides, I actually take my green and I'm just piping some green. Again, this is like a soft peak. And I can smush that with the spoon. You can see the line that I piped is very rough. So when you press the cookies on, it kind of spreads the icing out. So I gave a nice green, mossy side to this. Okay. There we go. I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to airbrush my steps too. There we go. You can see this is really quick. There we go. Okay. There. So let's do that to our steps as well. And this step is going to sit in the front here, and this one here. So I'm going to do a little bit of airbrushing. Ugh, crumbs everywhere. That drives me crazy a little bit, to be honest. That drives me a little bit crazy. Okay, so let's get the brown. I'm just going to focus on the edge here, and there we go. There, and a little bit on this guy too. I can just do this. There we go. Okay. There are our steps and our floor. Super fast. Super, super fast. Okay. Let's see what's next on the list. Make the table. Okay. I'm going to take my spatula and move this because I don't want my fingers all green and cookie crumb while that sets. Actually, I'm going to glue this onto my board so that I don't have to pick it up again. So, it can be white or green. I'm going to just put some icing on the back of this and stick this down towards the back. There we go. And let's do our step right in the front. And this little guy right there off to the side. A little swirl or a curved pathway. Okay, and move this out of the way, get all the crumbs off my table. And we're going to start assembling this very soon. Okay. This drives me nuts. At least it's just temporary. Once it's on the board, you're not moving this stuff around and creating more crumbs. Okay, let's see if I can throw this in my sink from here. Not bad, I'm gonna have to sweep after. I can already feel the crumbs under my feet. Okay, so we're gonna make the table now. Here's the tabletop, and I have a mold for a tree stump. So for the tree stump, which is our tabletop, I'm gonna take a bit of the tan, I'm gonna place it in the base of the mold and spread it around, and I try and leave a little gap at the very bottom so that when I press the dark brown in, it kind of goes around the outside of the middle of the tree, if that makes sense. And I'm going to put this in the freezer. That's too much. Let's do a better job. Okay, pressing that in, pushing it almost to the edge of the inside. And I'm going to pop this in the freezer so it gets firm, so that when I push my brown in, it doesn't spread out that tan any further. And then I'm going to do the tabletop. For the tabletop, I'm gonna roll out tiny little bit, maybe a bit more, of tan. There we go. And I'm going to use my round cutter. Actually, before I use the round cutter, I'm going to use that mold that Roberta has that doesn't, and I'm going to, again, powdered sugar on my fingers and press. Peel that off. Center and cut. There we go. And a little bit of water. Spray. Centering my cookie. There we go. And I'm going to get that cocoa powder, and I'm going to just dust it randomly. You don't want to cover the whole cookie with dust. Otherwise, you're not going to get any dimension. Okay. Now that that's done, we're going to finish this. I'm going to take a little piece of brown. And I'm going to roll a long strip. Hopefully this is long enough to go around. No, it's not. Okay. This should be long enough. Yep. So I'm going to take that tin foil again. There we go. Get my ruler, and I know that this cookie is about 1/4 of an inch thick. So here we are. Actually, make sure it's straight. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now, if you got any of that texture when you pushed with the ruler, you can just tap it again. Okay, back to the piping gel. I'm going to put a bit of piping gel around the outside of this cookie, like so. I can't wait to watch all of these videos. Like I said when I started mine, I haven't had a chance to watch anything yet because I've been preparing. And I'm going to park my butt on the sofa as soon as I'm done. And I'm going to watch Anna's demo, and then I'm going to go back and watch the others. Okay. Trim the excess off. And there we have a tree slice tabletop. Now, my mold has been in the freezer long enough, so I'm going to go get that out. Take some of the brown fondant, knead it, push it into the mold, pull away any excess. I love this fondant too because I can just use my thumb to pull the excess off. Don't need a knife or anything because I don't like ruining my molds. So I'm going to pop that out. And these pop out really easily, even if you haven't frozen them. So that's my tabletop base. And I wanted it to be a little taller, so I took a little piece of fondant, rolled it in a ball, put the ball here, and got this a bit tacky. Actually, not tacky. Let's put some royal icing here. There we go. Put my tabletop on, centered it. And actually, I attached it this way and let it dry this way so that the weight of the tabletop wouldn't squish my base any shorter. And that is how I did the base and the tabletop. So that's done. I'm going to show you next how I created this little vase. I'm just going to make a couple more things and then we're going to put this all together. Okay, so for the vase, I used fondant. That was mixed with brown and orange. And I rolled it in a ball. I took another piece, rolled a tiny ball, took my rolling pin, oh, camera's in the way, squashed it down flat into a disc, took this, rolled it into a bit of a teardrop shape or a fat carrot, flattened the bottom just by twirling it on the table, flattened the top by twirling it on the table, and stuck it to the base, just like that. Then I took a little bit more of this clay color, rolled a little sausage shape, and you can use your smoother for this too. And you can use water to stick this down, but if you work quickly, you won't need to because the fondant will stick to itself. And normally I make a nicer cut and blend that in a bit better, but once we add our greenery in, you're not going to see that. Okay, so there is our little pot. Cute. Now, the greenery. What I used for that was, dropped a mold. Okay, what I used for that was Wheaties, Weetabix Wheaties, and I broke it in pieces, like so, and it stays attached at the bottom. It's like there's a seam or something. I'm going to move this out of the way because it's driving me crazy. And I airbrushed it. So let's get the airbrush out. And I have a piece right here. And I take a bunch of little pieces, and there's the green. Oops. This makes great grass too. Easy peasy. Take some of my green royal icing, fill the base of the pot, and stick that in. And you can fill in the sides and make this bushier if you want. Okay? All right. Let's start putting all of this stuff together. Okay? So here we are. Here's our cake board with our floor and our stairs. I'm going to pick this up carefully. It's probably not quite dry yet, but it's stuck. And I'm going to rush here because running out of time. Otherwise, I would put some green and some moss there. So I'm going to carefully lift this. And I'm going to put some icing, green, along the base. And I'm going to attach this to my board. So there we have it. Okay. Now I'm going to position everything. So I'm going to put my table, a little bit of green icing, put my table right here in the corner. I'm going to put my potted plant on the table, a little bit of green icing. There we go. And I'm going to put a couple more rocks in this area. So I'm going to take that fondant that I've mixed just in some of the nooks and crannies. And I've made some little toadstools with fondant. So I'm going to put one right in the corner. Right there. I'm going to put a rock. Right here. Just kind of filling in this area with a few rocks. I don't know if you can see. I hope you can see. Here we go. There we go. Okay. This is right in my face. So I'm going to have to work around the camera. It might be a little awkward, but I'll do it. And another little rock maybe right there. A little dot of icing, or you can use piping gel. A couple rocks here. Maybe a big one right here. And a little guy right there. And maybe, oh, and I made another, oh, the table doesn't go there. I'm such a silly Nilly. The table, oh, good thing I made a plate. The table goes inside the house. And I have a little, there we go. I have a little plate that I made with a mold right here. So I'm going to put that right where I stuck the planter because it's green. And I have a little itty bitty croissant mold. And stick the croissant on the plate. And little treats. Just some little molds that I found. Little cake or donut, I'm not sure what it is. And a couple little cookies. So tiny, I should be using tweezers. There we go. Okay. This is what goes there. I made a bigger tree stump, just like I did for the table top. So a little bit of green icing, sticking that down. There we go. Now the planter can go on, like so. What a dummy. And I have a little stump here that I'm going to pop in right there. And I'm going to put a flower right there. See, that flower was done yesterday and I still was able to bend it into shape and have it not crack. Little toadstools here and there. Let's put one here. Let's put a big one back here. There, and I have some more of that shredded wheat. The shredded wheat that I colored green. Where is it? Here it is. Here we go. So I'm going to put some of that on the side of the house here. Right there. And you can put some over here. There we go. I made a little log with a mold, which I'm going to place kind of leaning up against the side of the house, and a couple more toadstools here and there. There we go. There. Stay. My green I mixed last night, so it got a little softer. All right. What time is it? Oh, perfect. Okay. So on the original one that I made, I put this big leafy mold, on the top. And I think that looks nice because it's a little mini house in a big forest because it's a fairy's house, right? So let's add that. And then I'm going to add a little bit more moss around all the rocks and then we're done. So for that, let's get this mold and my green fondant. Timing kind of worked out perfectly. And one other thing I did on this one, where's my white fondant? I'm going to wipe my hands too, because my hands are awfully sticky and I've got green stuff all over them. Okay, oh, here it is. I have some white and a paintbrush. And on the top of this, I'm just going to add some white royal icing. Sorry. And this is like a flooding consistency. Just taking some on my brush and brushing just here and there. Some white on the bark. Again, that's just adding some texture and definition and interest. Okay, that's done. So you can, this is all really easy, as you can see. And it was pretty quick to do too. Okay, let's take some of this green. We're gonna just finish right on time, I think. But how sweet would this be, like I said, on a top of a cake? So I'm kneading my fondant. And if you've noticed, when I've been working with these molds, I haven't put cornstarch or anything in the molds because this fondant releases amazingly well. So I'm just going to push this all the way in to all the crevices. And I'm going to just powder my fingers with some powdered sugar. And I'm going to just pull the excess with my fingers away. Like I said, no need for a knife with this because knives ruin molds. There we go. Now, I'm working a little fast here. Normally I work with a little bit more finesse and don't overfill my molds. I like to underfill and then add if I need to. But I feel under the gun here. There we go. Okay. That is filled. Wipe my fingers. Dry my fingers. Okay, let's pop this out. No cornstarch, no freezing, and this is going to pop out quite easily. Even though it's like on a stem. There we go. Okay, I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to get some little piping gel just here and there. You don't have to cover it. There we go. And I'm going to take my little house, pick this up, and I like to have this kind of hanging over the edge a little bit. Again, for more interest, place the leaves where I want them to go. Like so. Again, you could make little gum paste leaves that are more realistic looking. Let's add a couple of flowers here. Let's add one right there, one right here, one right there. And then I'm going to add a little bit more moss in some areas, and then this is done. So I'm going to take my piping bag, I'm going to kind of go around all of the rocks and some of the tree stump here, maybe a bit in there, maybe a bit on the sides of the house. There and there, maybe a bit right here. And then I'm going to take that cookie crumb and I'm going to add. So what the moss does at the edge, it kind of takes away sort of like the rough edge of the rocks going into the board, and the board makes the board look less flat, if that makes any sense. Let's put a little bit right there. And so it transitions from bumpy and textured into the smooth area of the board. And for the sides, I don't want to tip this because it's not dry yet. I'm just going to sprinkle some on the sides and catch it with the spoon. And anywhere you have moss that you don't want it, you can just kind of brush it away with a paintbrush. So I will do that. Kind of clean this up a little bit. I will try and tip this on its side, holding and supporting the back so this doesn't come apart, so you can see what we've created. I'm going to move this back. And I'm going to hold the back because it's not dry yet. But look how cute. So stinking cute. Okay. And we have this one that we just made, and this is my sample. And you can see they pretty much look exactly the same, and we did that in an hour and a half. So I'm going to switch my camera around and say bye. Hi and bye. So what time do we have? Exactly 4:30. Wow, I can't believe I managed that. to be right on time. So I'm just going to review quickly. You have extra time, no worries. Oh, see, I didn't read that. But let's hold these up so you can see. This is the one we made today. Very cute. And this is the one I made yesterday. So pretty much the same. So cute. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you give it a try. Like I said, the cutters, you can get the physical cutters if you're in Canada, because I'm not shipping to the US because of the whole tariff situation. I don't want somebody to order cutters and they show up at their door and they're $200, like a $200 fee for clearance and all of that kind of stuff. But for the US, I do have the STL files, so you can get the STL files, learntocake.com, search Fairy House, and you'll be able to choose between the physical cutters or the STLs. The STLs are an instant download. That's new for me, so if it doesn't work, just shoot me a message and I'll make sure you get them, but I'm pretty sure it works. And the fondant, Fondalicious, you can get at Icing Images in the US, icingimages.com, in 2 pound, 5 pound, or 20 pound. And in Canada, very soon, just working on some label stuff. Deb, I need to talk to you about that. And yeah, and the meringue powder, Fluff and Stuff, that is also available at icingimages.com in the US, and here in Canada it's learntocake.com in 5 pound bags or 1 pound bags. Okay, so Melinda, thank you for having me, and guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks, and don't be afraid to experiment and try and think of different ways of doing things that might be quicker or easier. And so thank you so much. Have a great day. And Anna is up next, I think, in just under a half an hour. Can't wait to watch her, and can't wait to watch Jean and Amy from this morning. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.